Since Bishop Losey is relatively new to our diocese, I wanted to take just make a few brief notes of introduction. Bishop Losey is the fifth bishop of the Diocese of Kalamazoo and was ordained on July 25, 2023. Previous to his appointment by the Holy Father to the Diocese of Kalamazoo, Bishop Losey was a priest of the Diocese of Erie. And he, this Sunday, celebrates his 35th anniversary of his ordination to the priesthood. Bishop Losey has extensive experience in this area of child protection, having previously served as the director of the Office of Protection of Children and Youth for the Diocese of Erie, along with his other pastoral and administrative duties, including Vicar General and moderator of the Curia. Bishop Losey has also earned a doctorate in canon law from the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome. It is my honor to now invite Bishop Losey to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki, and good morning to everyone who's here with us in person. Thank you for being here, and also my warm regards to all who are joining us via live stream. We find ourselves today in the midst of April, which, as many of you know, and as Vicki just mentioned, is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Every April, countless institutions and agencies make great efforts to educate the public and to promote awareness of best practices in preventing childhood abuse. And our being here today is part of that nationwide April effort. I am announcing today that the Diocese of Kalamazoo is presently undertaking a comprehensive review of all of our child protection policies with the intention of making sure that we are following best practices in every aspect of our work with children and youth. Providing safe environments for young people is a sacred duty, which we take very seriously. Every adult who works with children and youth is required to undergo a national background check and to complete a 3-hour safe environment program. To date, more than 19,000 have done so. However, we are always striving to remain vigilant and to do everything we can to create the safest possible environment for our children. To that end, we are reviewing our policies and procedures for 3 major reasons. The first is to protect the children and youth entrusted to us by creating safe environments in our churches, schools, and apostolates. The second is to work to educate our faithful and those in the community to recognize predatory behavior and other types of behavior that put children at risk. The third goal is to work toward eradicating all the forms of child abuse wherever we can. To this last point, I'd like to say that in my former responsibilities in the Diocese of Erie, from which I came, I met with numerous survivors of childhood sexual abuse. I have heard their stories, and I have witnessed their pain. We can never forget that behind these stories, there are real people who have experienced deep hurt. I sincerely apologize for any way in which we, as the Diocese of Kalamazoo, contributed to that suffering. Childhood sexual abuse is a grave evil, and we are committed to doing all that we can to provide some measure of healing to survivors and a safe environment for the young people entrusted to our care. As Bishop of Kalamazoo, I would like to reaffirm my commitment to meet with anyone who suffered abuse at the hands of someone employed or volunteering in the name of the Church. Although the complete and final version of our updated policies will not be available until this summer, in conjunction with National Child Abuse Prevention Month, I would like to announce today one significant development. We are releasing a list on the diocesan website of individuals who, in the judgment of the Diocese of Kalamazoo, are disqualified and therefore prohibited from working or volunteering with children or youth in any Catholic entity here in the diocese. That includes our 59 parishes and missions, 21 Catholic schools, as well as all of our Catholic apostolates, such as the Catholic charities, agencies, and others. Individuals appear on this list because, again, I underscore, in the judgment of the Diocese of Kalamazoo, they have been credibly accused of actions that put children and youth at risk, or, worse, that cause real and lasting harm. These actions disqualify and prohibit them from working or volunteering with children or youth. Now, any such list needs to have parameters. And so the list published today by the diocese is limited in scope to actions involving minors, and the individuals on the list must have done some disqualifying action while employed or volunteering for a parish, school, agency, institution, or other Catholic entity within the Diocese of Kalamazoo. Now, I will note, by way of exception, there are a few individuals mentioned on the list who committed some disqualifying action elsewhere, and they are so noted. The disqualifying actions for which someone could be identified on the list include continued violation of a child protection policy after warnings, failing as a mandated reporter to report allegations of abuse of minors, failing to act to prevent abuse that they knew to be happening, furnishing pornography to minors, the possession or use of child pornography, physical abuse of minors, and direct sexual abuse or sexual assault of minors. Now, this list includes both clergy and non-clergy alike, and it covers more than sexual abuse. It is important to remember that the accusations, while considered credible in the judgment of the Diocese of Kalamazoo, are not the equivalent of a conviction in a court of law. This list of those who are disqualified for employment or volunteering with youth is by its nature forward-looking. It is intended to provide for the future as safe an environment for young people as possible. Now, some of the individuals on the list are deceased, however, and so some people may ask, well, why would they be on such a list? With their inclusion, we are beginning a process whereby we as a diocese must not only look forward to preventing abuse in the future, but also look backward to take ownership of our past and acknowledge the very real suffering of victim survivors. Today's list is a start in that direction. The Attorney General of the state of Michigan has publicly indicated that her office's report for the Diocese of Kalamazoo will be published sometime this spring. And when that report is published, it will necessitate an even greater coming to terms with our past. But I am convinced if we are to move forward into the future as a diocese, we must come to terms with our past. The Diocese of Kalamazoo is committed to helping survivors of childhood abuse find healing. Survivors can call a 24-hour crisis hotline available through Catholic Charities at 800-873-8336. I will repeat that. A crisis hotline available through Catholic Charities at 800-873-8336. And through that same hotline, individuals can request assistance with counseling, spiritual direction, and referrals to other supportive services. Additionally, the diocese offers free of charge the Trauma Recovery Program, which is a 10-week program open to all people dealing with the impact of childhood abuse. More than 600 people have participated in this program since its launch in 2003. I encourage anyone who is aware of child sexual abuse or other abuse to report the matter to the appropriate law enforcement agency. And we welcome any additional information that may shed light on any past or present cases. I entrust all of our efforts today to the prayers of the Virgin Mother of God and to the saving grace of her Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Thank you all for your attention, and I will now take any questions.
Bishop, the 600 number that you have right here, talking about individuals who have suffered from that childhood trauma and then have used your recovery program, is that specific to this diocese?
This program, because I'm newer here, I'm making sure I'm giving you correct information. This is a program specific to the Diocese of Kalamazoo, and it's open to anyone who's experienced childhood trauma, sexual abuse trauma or other, and it's offered free of charge, and so far 600 people have gone through our own program. It's related to a national program which is also run out of Kalamazoo, Trauma Recovery Associates.
So those 600 are not necessarily individuals who suffered some type of abuse within the Catholic Diocese?
No, not at all, not at all.
How many credible abuse complaints have you guys had within the Catholic Diocese as you're looking at this right now?
Well, I am going to mention that the Attorney General's report has not yet been published, and so I'm going to defer and wait for that report to come out before I...
You don't have your own numbers here?
I don't want to prejudice the report of the Attorney General.
Is that one of the reasons that you're releasing this list now? This investigation has been ongoing for 5-6 years, and only after learning that the AG's office will be publishing their report this spring did you guys decide to come forward with this, being only one of 2 dioceses left in the state of Michigan to not publish their list.
I would say that this process began in 2018 and then was put on hold.
Why?
I don't know all the details to that, but I think part of it had to do so as not to interfere with the investigation. I believe that was part of the rationale. When I came on board in July, one of the first things I asked about was, has there been a list? Because I come out of Pennsylvania, and the response, our reality of dealing with abuse there and dealing with the grand jury report in Pennsylvania, I mentioned that I have met with many abuse survivors. I've heard their stories. I am also aware of how healing our acknowledgement of their stories by the publication of such a list can be.
Well, you said when you came in here, you asked had there been a list. Was there a list when you came in, even just a year ago? Internally?
The work that had been done, what we are doing here is in many ways completing the process that had begun in 2018.
So there was a list.
It was in progress, but it wasn't. I'm going to say, in part, there was. There was clearly the foundations of this were laid before I got here. My experience in Pennsylvania told me we need to move ahead with this.
And to publish the list.
Yes.
Okay, so you will be publishing the list today. How many individuals are credible within, like you said, the judgment of the diocese? How many?
This list is a forward-looking list.
What does that mean?
It means that I am making a determination as bishop of the diocese that these people are not authorized for ministry, employment, or volunteering going forward, working with children or youth.
And how many people are on that list then, that forward-looking list?
Well, I have it here. Living, there are 6.
6.
Yes. This is also a dynamic list. So what we publish today can be added to as we get more information. Whenever new relevant information comes to us that warrants inclusion on this list, new names will be added. This is where we are starting. There are also deceased people on the list, and there are also people on the list who have committed some of these disqualifying actions elsewhere, not here in the Diocese of Kalamazoo.
So you're only counting these 6 as those with actions within the Diocese of Kalamazoo who are still living?
The 6 who are listed as living all did things here in the Diocese of Kalamazoo under our watch.
Are any of those under an actual investigation by the state that you know of?
I can't comment on that.
Okay. Let's talk about, you say you've been meeting with individuals in the past who have suffered from such abuse. Have you met with any of those individuals that have suffered from abuse here in this diocese?
Not yet, but I am very open to that. Yeah.
What is your...
I may reach out to a few that I know of. In fact, I actually have reached out to a few that I know of. At the time, they weren't ready to meet. But I am ready and open at any time.
How many credible complaints have been made that you guys have been keeping an eye on here? You're investigating that are kind of then yourself kind of going through?
I am deferring to the publication of the Attorney General's report.
Why are you doing that and not getting ahead of it? If you're talking about how this is forward thinking.
Because that's an ongoing investigation.
But the ongoing investigation works for the other 6 dioceses, and plenty of those had released their list prior anyway.
I was not bishop of those other dioceses.
Okay, but now you are now.
It's on my watch,
And you don't believe.
and we have published the list, at least in its initial form.
But not the credible complaints.
We will wait for the Attorney General's report.
But your credible complaints that you talk about within this meeting you said today, those are under your words, the understanding and acknowledgement of the Diocese of Kalamazoo, that judgment. So your judgment of credible complaints versus AG's.
My judgment that these people are not qualified to work with children. That's what this list is about.
So it's not about the victims then?
Our attention and our pastoral care is always directed first and foremost to the victims. The nature of this list is forward-looking to make sure that these people are not working with children or youth.
Absolutely, and I understand that.
Yeah.
You're trying to prevent it from happening again.
Right. This is a preventive for the future. That's the principal focus of this work.
Which is amazing.
It's not the whole piece of child protection by any means, but it's an important piece going forward. The pieces looking backward, I'm going to defer until after the Attorney General's report comes, because in my understanding in Gaylord and in Marquette, the Attorney General's report does an extensive look backwards, which we need to do. but I'm going to wait until after they publish their report.
So you're not going to get ahead of it. Those 6 individuals that you went ahead and identified, I know that there were several things that could disqualify them from interacting with kids
Yes.
and youth. Are any of these the possession of child pornography?
I'm not going to comment and connect any individual to any reason on the list at this time. I'm not going to comment on any individual cases until after the Attorney General's report comes
Okay,
out.
because the possession of child pornography is illegal.
Absolutely.
It's a conviction,
So is failing to report a crime, as it, those are criminal acts civilly, not just, they're certainly disqualifying actions.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all 6 of these individuals though, I mean, it looks like all of these feel like illegal civil and criminal acts here. Is it not? So all 6 of these offenders?
Well, I am not a civil attorney. I would refer to a civil attorney to answer that question.
What would you like to say to survivors who have been waiting for this list for 5-6 years? And as you said, it's very rudimentary right now that's been released, and it's only ahead of the AG's report.
Right. I would say that I apologize that it has taken us so long. In many ways, this perhaps should have been done a lot sooner. I came in July, and it has been a priority of mine since I came. It has taken us a while to get all of the research done that necessarily has to happen before this is published. I'm working, basically a new team. So although a lot of the groundwork was laid, we also had to go back and start over from scratch to make sure that we understood what we were doing. And it has taken us till now. I would like to have done this in the fall.
Well, you've gone through what you said was a grand jury over in Pennsylvania,
Yes.
correct? So you understand the fallout that can come from this.
Yes.
Are you guys prepared for potential additional names to come out, to say the least, and how the diocese will react?
We are entirely prepared for that. And if we get information from whatever source and it meets the criteria, those names will go on the list. The truth is the truth. And our intention is to protect children and to, as far as we are able, to work toward eradicating child abuse in any form. And if I need to put out someone's name on this list as a measure of helping to protect children, I will do so.
If we've been doing background checks since, I think, 2003, how did these individuals slip through?
Not everything shows up in a background check. And some of these cases, I believe, predate that as well. And there are background checks are an excellent aid, but we also have to take other matters into consideration too. And not everything shows up on a background check.
Well, then what are those other steps you take to have those checks and balances, whether that's at one of the schools like the one outside here, or the other, whatever, 40 plus parishes that you have across town in missions?
Just the background check, the clearances are one piece, but there are other ways to check people's references.
And what are those ways? What are you guys doing? That's my question.
Well, that's what we're working on revising the policies about. I have some intention, some ideas, similar to what we did in Pennsylvania.
Which would have been?
Well, this is an idea I'm proposing, that every new hire or volunteer get a background or get a clearance, not just from the state or from the national office, but from our office here for safe environment. In case we happen to know something that doesn't show up on a background check. And that we would know either because someone's personal experience or whatever. But going forward, if there is somebody that I think shouldn't be working with kids, we're not going to grant them our own clearance. And that may be something that doesn't show up on any state or national background check.
So to clarify right now, you're only listing the names, you're not listing the credible complaints until after the AG's office has.
I don't know that this list will ever list the credible complaints. I may address them, but not by way of this list.
Okay.
That's not the purpose of this list.
Okay. Do you want to add anything else? That's all I need.
I just, want to reaffirm our commitment as a diocese to protecting young people. I want to reaffirm our commitment to doing whatever we can to make sure that the people who are working with children and youth are qualified to do so. This list is a big piece of that. It's not the only piece of it, but it's a big piece of it. I want to let anyone who has suffered from abuse know that if they are open and willing to coming to us for assistance, we are committed to providing it. I've met with enough victims and survivors to know that some of them would be very open to that. Some don't want anything to do with us at all. I respect their decisions in every case. They are one of our highest priorities. The protection of children going forward is one of our highest priorities as a diocese. With my coming on board as the bishop of the diocese, it is my hope that the experience I had in Pennsylvania will contribute here to the revision of these policies, to the best possible protection for children, to the best possible offering of assistance to victims, and to, I'm not going to say set a new course, because the diocese has been committed to this before, but to instill new vigor into the efforts that many good people have been undertaking here already.
Are you going to get into specifics about those policies, or is it just?
No, not, well, when they come out, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So all it is right now you're just updating and reviewing.
We
the
have been
policies.
working, a task force has been working on these for several months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when they come out, we will, I'm sure, probably have a similar kind of a way to reveal them, make them known to the public.
Okay.
We're also going to have to, in service, all of our people relative to any changes in the policies. Is there a question in the back?
Yes. How many victims have you worked with? You said that you have had victims come since you started here. How many have you
I haven't had any come here. I've extended an offer to some, but I think personally they're just not ready, and I respect that. In Pennsylvania, I met with a lot. I don't know the number.
ballpark?
but-
What would be a lot?
I hesitate to venture a guess. I'm really bad at approximating numbers. But quite a few. Victims of clergy abuse, victims of school personnel abuse, parish employee abuse.
Why do you think that this is happening?
I think that this reality has been with us in our humanity for a very long time. And the reality of childhood abuse, sexual abuse, other kinds of abuse, is very widespread in every element of our society. There's no section of our society where it's not present. Fortunately, we're beginning to talk about it. That's one of the biggest steps I think that we can take to working toward eradicating it. Because as long as it remains secret and hidden and behind closed doors, and children are not encouraged and enabled to come forward, it's just going to continue. So these efforts today are part of an attempt to prevent abuse going down the road in the future. As I said, we're also going to have to take an extensive look at our past to come to terms with it. And I think the Attorney General's report is going to provide an impetus for us to do that. But there's a lot that I can't comment on because I don't want to in any way compromise that process of the Attorney General's office.
You may have addressed this, but what have been some of the problems that you've had in the past here, or I believe over in Lansing, but just here locally?
Being relatively new, I'm not quite sure how thoroughly I can answer that question. There's not a lot that has come to my attention in the last 8 months. There were issues in the past, but that will wait for the Attorney General's report.
And when will that come?
One of the very first things I did was send out a rather strongly worded notice to all the clergy that no one will be working with children or youth in this diocese who does not observe our policies. That was very soon after I came where I sent that out. Some of you may remember receiving it. Yeah.
And you said that you're interested in doing background checks.
Well, we do that as a matter of policy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. National and other clearances that are required. The state has requirements for clearances. And then there's requirements for schools in particular. And then we're discussing the possibility of adding our own diocesan clearance. Because sometimes there are things that this is my experience from Pennsylvania, there are things that we know that don't show up on any government clearance. But in the back of my mind, I'm saying, yeah, but that person's not working with children or youth. So if they may get all the government clearances, but they're not going to get ours. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. I want to thank you for your questions. And I want to thank the people who have been doing this work, who've been putting a lot of effort into not just revising the policies, but the whole effort at providing safe environments and protecting kids. There's been a lot of very good work done, but we have a lot of work yet to do. So thank you.